Shalimin Hagedula.
In the past, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets, and many times in various ways. But now, in the end of days, He has spoken to us by the Messiah, His Son, whom He appointed the heir of all things, and through whom He made the universe. The Son is the full radiance of God's glory, and the flawless manifestation of His reality. He sustains all things by His powerful word. After He made atonement for sins, He sat down in the place of authority beside the majesty of heaven. True and firm, established and lasting, right and faithful, loved and treasured, desired and pleasant, feared and mighty, ordered and acceptable, good and beautiful is this word to us forever and ever.
All God's words are exactly that to us. Loved, treasured, good, beautiful. Tonight, our own Dr. Patrice will lead us in some reflections on the Megillah. It is the Megillah for this particular holiday, that of Ruth.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
It is my honor tonight to bring you just a few minutes of talking about the Megillah, the scroll that is specially read on this particular holiday. It's the scroll of Ruth. And because I've had the honor in the past couple of months of working on a new translation from the Hebrew of the book of Ruth, my husband thought that I might want to share some stuff with you. But only in 15 minutes, so have to rush right along and leave the rest of the story for later. The book of Ruth is a very beloved section of scripture. Many people learn about it at Shabbat school. I think messages are preached on it. There's a lot of imagery. There's a lot of metaphors in the book of Ruth. I'm going to maintain the first thing that might shock you is this should really be called the book of Naomi, because it tells the story of her life. And a lot of her life, not so happy. But the good news of this story, beyond, I know we all like the love story. We all like the, oh, it's so romantic, you know. And Boaz is so handsome, and she's so pretty. And beyond that romance part is the story of a woman who lost everything and who gained everything. It's nice. Now, I can't say that in the course of my translation, which I'm only half done with, by the way, that there is a lot of brand new stuff that I'm coming up with out of the Hebrew, but there is quite a few sections. There are quite a few sections that become clearer when you do look at the Hebrew. So you might be interested in some of those. As I said, to me, it's very clear that this is should be called the Book of Naomi. It takes place, as far as we know, during the time of the Judges. And in something ironic for both my husband and I, the people who believe it's set in the Book of Judges usually mention the name Gideon as the time period in which this Book of Ruth and Naomi takes place. Now I've gotten both my grandchildren's name into one sermon, so I feel I've succeeded. Can't do that very often. And so we're here in the book of Judges, and remember the background of the book of Judges is, and the key verse, and the one that if you get a chance to take the course in Former Prophets, everybody did what was right in their own eyes. Everybody did what was right in their own eyes, and that's not good. That would be seen as the largest failing of that time period. However, here we have a success story, an unusual story, not a unique story really, and I'll give you some of the tie-ins in a minute. Why do we read the book of Ruth at Shavuot? What does it have to do with Shavuot, the giving of the Torah? Good question. Here's one answer. Because the book of Ruth has to do, its key part of the story has to do with events that happened during the barley harvest. And so because Shavuot celebrates the first fruits, the barley harvest, then it's obvious that this time period of the book of Ruth fits in with this same holiday. Although Shavuot or Pentecost or whatever is not mentioned in the book of Ruth, you can see the tie-in just by the barley harvest. In Israel at this time of year, we were talking about watering the plants. There is no rain. There is no rain. We pray out of the Siddur. The standard prayer is between Passover, between Pesach and Rosh Hashanah, there is no rain. And then after Rosh Hashanah starts the rainy season. So there is a very strong, and there's no violation of this rule. This is a cut and dried rule, and I tell people who go to Israel in the summer, there will not be any rain. There will not be any rain. And if we see rain, when we go in June and July, then I would say it's a miracle of biblical proportions, and we better listen up right away, because everybody will be coming out of their houses going, oh no, this is not good, not good at all. So there's a control on the seasons. Now, the barley harvest is taken at the end of the rainy season. You trust me, you want your barley harvest to be dry. Anytime you harvest grain, you want it to be dry. You do not want damp grain. You don't want damp hay, because if you have damp hay or straw and you put it into an enclosed building for the summer to keep it for your animals, that is when you have barn fires, because the steam that is built up from the combination of heat and wet straw creates what might be seen as spontaneous combustion, but is really just a law of fire, that steam and easily flammable things will have an effect on each other. So it makes sense that this barley harvest, which takes place in Israel, would be at this time of year. We in North America and Northern Europe, we go, yeah, harvesting that'll be in the fall. Well, in many parts of the world, there is year-round harvesting. There are certain crops that are harvested, and at this point, since I can't go into the agricultural backgrounds of everything, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, it seems like a good idea. There are 4 basic things that we should remember and they're short, that we should remember when we think about the activities of the book of Ruth and this holiday. Number 1, this is a story of faithfulness from the God of Israel to a woman, Naomi, and her family. Without the faithfulness of God, this story can't take place. And without the testimony of Naomi, our happy ending to the book of Naomi would not take place either. Remember, Naomi and her husband, because there is a famine in their home, which is in the city of Bethlehem, Beit Lechem, Beit, house, lechem, bread. House of bread is literally what Beit Lechem is. And of course, Americans say Bethlehem now. But Beit Lechem, house of bread, is where they live. And can you see the irony in there's a famine in the house of bread? Naomi, her husband, and their 2 sons have to go. They have to leave. They have to be able to support themselves, and they want to eat food, so it's very helpful. While they're gone into a very nice little place called Moab, the boys marry local girls there. And I think we all know the story. The 3 men all die, leaving these 3 women. The 2 Moabite women and the mother-in-law. Naomi, whose name really means beautiful, or sometimes pleasant is closer, is so distraught over this turn of events that she point blank says, "Don't call me pleasant, because I'm not anymore. Everything's been taken from me. Call me Mara," which means bitter. So she's very real about her feelings. She doesn't try to sugarcoat her lot in life. It's tough. It's tough for her. She then hears, the 3 of them hear, oh, by the way, the bread has returned to Beit Lechem. They're doing fine. They're having crops again. And Naomi wants to go back to her old homestead. She wants to go back to her family's tract of land and regain some kind of position in Israel. She tells the 2 girls, she says, "Listen, I know you'd much rather stay here with your family. You don't owe me anything. You are released. Please go home, have a happy life, enjoy yourself. I'll be fine. I'll be on my way back to my home." And one of them says, "Thanks, I'll see you around. It's been real, you've been regular." And one of them says, "I'm not going anywhere." I think she's awestruck by that. And she says, "No, I think you're making a really bad choice. You need to reconsider. See Orpah, her name is. See Orpah over there? She's going back home, and you need to be," it literally says, "you need to be with her." And she says, "No." Ruth says no. And then she goes into that very romantic thing that is read at many, many weddings, which I find very strange because it's really a woman talking to her mother-in-law. And Ruth says, "Don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." And so Ruth becomes the center of the plan for God restoring Naomi's life. Without Naomi's faithfulness, even though she's upset, even though she says she's bitter, she still believes. She does not turn her back on God. And in some way, her relationship with Ruth is such that whatever Naomi, whatever you are, I want to be with you. When we go to the end of the book, Naomi, who has lost her family, she's lost her husband, she lost her 2 sons, she has no offspring. At the end of the book of Ruth, she has everything restored, doesn't she? It talks in the last few verses about Naomi's joy at the birth of the son of Boaz and Ruth. His name, in English they say it's Obed, which is like the ugliest name ever. But it is the same name as the beginning of what in English we call Obadiah, but in Hebrew always sounds much better, Ovadia, which means my servant, or Oved, so my servant. And the women in town are so impressed with this whole story and how it's worked out for Naomi. They